"Get on your knees and clean it up, you pathetic excuse for a woman," Haley screamed, her voice shattering the sophisticated hum of the violin quartet. The crystal flute smashed against the marble floor, shards skittering like diamonds in the blood-red puddle of spilled vintage Merlot. "I didn't—" Josie stammered, her breath hitching as the entire ballroom fell into a suffocating silence. "Don't you dare speak." Jonah, the man who had sworn to love her forever just 3 years ago, stepped forward. His eyes weren't filled with the warmth she remembered, but with a cold, jagged disgust. "You're ruining my night, Josie, just like you ruined my life. Do as my fiancé says, beg for forgiveness or get out." The Grand Sterling Hotel was a monument to excess, a sprawling palace of gold leaf, velvet drapes, and chandeliers that cost more than the house Josie Dawson grew up in. Tonight, the air smelled of expensive lilies, roasted duck, and the distinct metallic tang of old money. It was the engagement gala of the year. Jonah Wilder, the tech mogul of the decade, was officially pledging his life to Haley Ford, the heiress to a shipping empire. Josie Dawson adjusted the scratchy collar of her grey catering uniform in the service corridor. Her reflection in the stainless steel refrigerator was a stranger. Her caramel hair, once worn in loose, cascading waves that Jonah used to bury his face in, was pulled back into a severe, tight bun mandated by the agency. Her skin, usually glowing, was pale and shadowed with exhaustion. She wasn't Josie Dawson, the brilliant software architect who had written the core code for WilderTech's first algorithm. Tonight, she was staff number 42. "Trays up, people. Move it. The VIPs are thirsty, and Mr. Wilder is already complaining about the speed of service," the floor manager barked, clapping his hands. Josie swallowed the lump of bile rising in her throat. She didn't want to be here. God, she would rather be anywhere else on Earth, stranded in a desert, lost at sea, than serving champagne to her ex-husband and the woman he left her for. But the legal fees from the divorce had drained her savings, and Jonah's lawyers had effectively blacklisted her from every tech firm in the city with bogus non-compete clauses and whispered rumors of mental instability. She needed this paycheck. She needed to pay rent. She needed to eat. She picked up a heavy silver tray laden with crystal flutes of Dom Perignon. The weight of it strained her wrists, but she locked her elbows, forcing a neutral expression onto her face. Invisibility, she told herself. That is your superpower tonight. You are not Josie. You are furniture. You are air. Pushing through the swinging doors, the roar of the party hit her like a physical wave. 300 of the city's elite were packed into the Sterling's diamond ballroom. Laughter rang out, sharp and artificial. As Josie wove through the crowd, offering drinks with a silent nod, she recognized faces. There was Marcus Thorne, the venture capitalist who had eaten at her dinner table 2 Christmases ago. He looked right through her, his eyes sliding over her face as if she were a coat rack, reaching for a glass without breaking his conversation. "The merger is genius," Marcus was saying. "Jonah shed the dead weight and upgraded his image. Haley is the perfect face for the brand." Dead weight. The words felt like a physical slap. Josie kept walking, her grip on the tray tightening until her knuckles turned white. She was the dead weight. She, who had stayed up for 3 nights straight, debugging the code that saved the company from bankruptcy in year 1. She, who had sold her grandmother's jewelry to pay for their first server space. She navigated toward the center of the room, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. And then she saw them. They were standing on a raised platform near the orchestra, bathed in a spotlight that seemed to follow them like a blessing. Jonah Wilder looked devastatingly handsome in a bespoke midnight blue tuxedo. He was taller than she remembered, broader, his posture radiating the arrogance of a man who had conquered the world. His hand rested possessively on the small of Haley's back. Haley Ford was a vision in shimmering silver silk, a dress that clung to her curves like liquid mercury. She threw her head back, laughing at something Jonah whispered, her diamonds catching the light. She was beautiful, undeniably so, but it was a sharp, predatory beauty. Josie felt a wave of dizziness. She paused near a pillar, trying to steady her breathing. Just 2 more hours, she told herself. Drop the tray, collect the check, leave. Champagne? She whispered to a passing couple, her voice raspy. Oh, look at her, a voice sneered from her left. Josie froze. She knew that voice. It was Liam Walker, Jonah's best friend and the current COO of Wilder Tech. Liam had been the best man at her wedding to Jonah. He had toasted to their eternal happiness. Now he stood holding a whiskey, looking at her with a mix of pity and amusement. Josie, Liam said, not lowering his voice. Christ, it's actually true. I thought the guys were joking when they said you were working the floor. Josie didn't look up. She kept her eyes on the bubbles rising in the glasses. Hello, Liam. Would you like a drink? Is this some kind of stunt? Liam stepped closer, invading her personal space. Did you take this job to embarrass him? Because it's not working. You just look desperate. I'm working, Liam, Josie said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. I have bills to pay. Since Jonah froze our joint assets and your legal team ensured I couldn't get hired in my own field, this is what's left. Liam scoffed, taking a glass and downing half of it in one gulp. Always the victim, right? Maybe if you'd focused more on being a supportive wife and less on trying to be the brains of the operation, you wouldn't be serving drinks to your betters. He dropped the half-empty glass back onto her tray with a heavy clink, unbalancing it slightly. Josie struggled to keep it level. Smile, Josie, Liam sneered, turning away. It's a celebration. As Liam walked away, Josie felt a stinging sensation in her eyes. She wouldn't cry. She refused to give them that satisfaction. She turned to head back to the kitchen, needing a moment of sanctuary, but her path was blocked. Standing directly in front of her, blocking her escape, was Jade Knight. Jade was the only person from her old life who hadn't blocked her number, but Josie had stopped answering her calls months ago, too ashamed of her downfall. Josie, Jade whispered, her eyes wide with horror. Jade was wearing a stunning emerald gown, looking every bit the high society darling. Oh my God, what are you doing? I'm working, Jade, Josie said softly. Please, don't make a scene. This is sick, Jade hissed, looking around furiously. Did Jonah set this up? Did he make sure the agency sent you specifically? Josie hadn't thought of that. A cold dread settled in her stomach. I don't know. Here, Jade reached into her clutch. Take my car keys. Go. I'll give you money. You don't have to do this. I can't take your charity, Jade, Josie said, stepping back. I need to do this on my own. If I run away now, they win. They see me as broken. I need to finish the shift. Josie, look at them. Jade gestured subtly toward the platform. They are wolves. You are walking into a slaughter. I'm just a waitress, Jade. To them, I'm nobody. I'm invisible. Not to him, Jade said, her voice dropping. Josie followed Jade's gaze. Jonah had stopped laughing. He was looking across the room, past the dignitaries and the models, directly at Josie. His expression was unreadable, a mask of stone. But then a slow, cruel smirk spread across his lips. He leaned down and whispered something to Haley. Haley turned, her eyes locking onto Josie. The smile vanished from the other woman's face, replaced by a look of pure, malicious delight. She whispered something back to Jonah, patted his chest, and began to descend the stairs from the platform. She was coming right for Josie. The room seemed to stretch, the distance between Josie and Haley closing with agonizing slowness. Josie wanted to turn and run, to drop the tray and sprint through the service doors, out into the rainy night, but her feet felt leaden, nailed to the plush carpet. As Haley approached, the crowd naturally parted for her like the Red Sea. She was the queen of the night, the woman of the hour. Josie was the spectre at the feast. "Well, well," Haley purred, stopping 2 feet from Josie. The scent of her perfume, something custom-made, heavy with jasmine and musk, was overpowering. "I heard a rumor that the catering company was scraping the bottom of the barrel, but I didn't realize they were hiring charity cases." A small circle of onlookers began to form. People sensed drama like sharks sensed blood. The ambient chatter died down in their immediate vicinity. "Good evening, Miss Ford," Josie said, staring at the diamond necklace around Haley's neck. It was a necklace Josie had designed on a napkin 3 years ago, a piece she had dreamed of buying when the company went public. Jonah had bought it for Haley instead. "Champagne?" Haley laughed, a tinkling, brittle sound. "From you? I'm afraid it might be poisoned, or simply bitter." The onlookers tittered. Josie kept the tray extended, her arms burning. "It's fresh from the bottle, Miss Ford." "You have some nerve showing up here," Haley hissed, stepping closer so only Josie could hear the venom in her voice. "Stalking us? Really? It's pathetic, Josie. Jonah doesn't want you. He never really did. He needed a coder, not a wife. And once he hired real engineers, well, you became obsolete." The truth of it, or at least the fear that it was the truth, cut Josie deeper than any knife. "I'm just doing my job," Josie said, her voice barely a whisper. "Your job," Haley mocked, raising her voice again for the audience. "Is this what you amount to without a man to prop you up? Serving drinks to the people who actually matter? Is there a problem here, darling?" Jonah arrived. His voice was smooth, deep, the voice that used to whisper promises of forever in the dark. Now it dripped with condescension. He stood next to Haley, slipping an arm around her waist, presenting a united front against the woman in the grey apron. "No problem, Jonah," Haley beamed up at him. "Just catching up with the help. Josie was just telling me how happy she is for us." Jonah turned his cold gaze onto Josie. Up close he looked tired, his eyes hard. "You shouldn't be here, Josie. It's gauche." "I was assigned this shift, Jonah," Josie said, looking him in the eye for the first time. "I didn't know it was your party until I got the briefing an hour ago. I can leave if you want to pay out my contract." "Always about money with you," Jonah sighed, shaking his head. "I already gave you a settlement." "You gave me debt," Josie corrected, a spark of anger flaring in her chest. "You buried me in legal fees fighting for intellectual property that I created." "Delusional," Jonah said to the group gathering around them. "This is what I had to deal with for years. The paranoia, the jealousy." "I wrote the code, Jonah." Josie's voice rose, cracking slightly. "The predictive rendering engine, that was me. You couldn't even code a hello world in Python when we met." A gasp went through the circle. Jonah's jaw tightened. This was the narrative he had spent millions to erase. "Security," Jonah said calmly, raising a hand. "I think this staff member has had too much to drink." "I haven't touched a drop," Josie protested, looking around for support. She saw Liam smirking. She saw Jade looking terrified, wanting to step in, but held back by her own husband. "She's making a scene," Haley said loudly. "It's sad, really. She just can't let go." Josie felt the walls closing in. The injustice was a physical weight, crushing her lungs. She looked at these people, people she had cooked for, people she had hosted, people she had helped, and saw only blank, judgment-filled faces. They didn't see a human being. They saw a disruption to their evening entertainment. "I'll go," Josie said, lowering the tray. "I don't need security. I'll leave." "No," Haley said sharply. Her eyes gleamed with a sudden, dark idea. "Why should you leave? You're on the clock, aren't you? We have guests who need service. If you leave, you're breaching contract. I'll make sure the agency never hires you again. And I'll make sure every other agency in the state knows you walked out on a VIP event." Josie froze. She couldn't afford to be blacklisted. It was her only income. "Good," Haley smiled, a predator toying with a mouse. "Then get back to work. Oh, and Josie, my table needs a refill. Table 1. Don't keep us waiting. Jonah chuckled, a low, cruel sound. Go on, Josie. Chop chop. They turned their backs on her, dismissing her existence with a terrifying ease. Josie stood there, trembling, the champagne glasses rattling softly against each other. She took a deep breath, fighting back the tears that threatened to ruin her makeup. She had to survive this. She had to survive tonight. She moved toward table 1, a large circular table near the stage. As she approached, she noticed a man sitting alone at the adjacent table, in the shadows away from the spotlight. He wasn't looking at the stage. He wasn't looking at Jonah or Haley. He was looking at her. He wore a black suit, cut impeccably, but without the flashy accessories the other men wore. No tie, just a crisp white shirt unbuttoned at the collar. He had dark hair, slightly messy, and eyes that were intense and focused. He didn't look like he belonged to this crowd of peacocks. He looked dangerous. He looked grounded. Josie quickly looked away, feeling exposed. She reached table 1. Haley and Jonah were seated, holding court. Refill, Haley said, tapping her glass without looking up. Josie stepped forward. She reached for the bottle of red wine, a 1982 Bordeaux, that sat in the center of the table. Careful, Jonah said dryly. That bottle is worth more than your life. Josie ignored him. She gripped the bottle, her hands sweating. She moved to pour into Haley's glass. And then it happened. Haley's elbow shot out. It was subtle, quick, a movement masked by a gesture of laughter. But it connected hard with Josie's wrist. The bottle slipped. Time seemed to slow down. Josie watched in horror as the heavy glass bottle tumbled from her fingers. It didn't hit the table. It didn't hit the floor. It hit Haley. The bottle struck Haley's shoulder, splashing a dark, violent crimson wave across the bodice of her shimmering silver dress, before clattering onto the fine china plates, shattering them. Haley screamed. It was a high, piercing shriek that cut through the music, stopping the orchestra mid-note. My dress! My God, my dress! Haley leaped up, the red wine soaking into the silk, looking like a gruesome chest wound. You burned me, you crazy bitch! I didn't? Josie gasped, backing away, her hands held up in surrender. You hit my arm, you moved! Liar! Haley shrieked, her face contorted in ugly, theatrical rage. Everyone saw you. You threw it at me. You couldn't stand seeing us happy. Jonah was on his feet instantly, knocking his chair back. He grabbed Josie by the arm, his grip bruising. What the hell is wrong with you? He roared. Jonah, she nudged me, Josie cried out, pain shooting up her arm. Please, you have to believe me. It was an accident. Get on your knees and clean it up, you pathetic excuse for a woman, Haley screamed, pointing at the mess. The room was deadly silent now. Every eye was fixed on the spectacle. This was the moment from the hook, the absolute nadir of Josie's life. I said, get down. Jonah shoved her downward. Josie stumbled, falling onto the hard marble floor. Her knees cracked against the stone. Shards of glass bit into her palms. The humiliation was total. She was on her knees before the man she had loved and the woman who had stolen him, surrounded by the wreckage of her dignity. Clean it, Haley hissed, standing over her like a vengeful goddess. Use your apron. Use your hair for all I care. Just wipe it up. Tears finally spilled over Josie's lashes, hot, scalding tears. She reached for a napkin, her hands shaking so badly she could barely grasp it. She started to dab at the wine on the floor, the red liquid staining her skin like blood. Look at her, Liam laughed from the sidelines, finally in her proper place. Security, Jonah yelled. Get her out of here and call the police. I want to press charges for assault. Assault? Josie looked up, terror in her eyes. Jonah, please, it was wine. It was a mistake. You attacked my fiancé, Jonah spat. You're unstable. I'm done protecting you. Two burly security guards in black suits began to march toward the table. Josie cowered, bracing herself to be dragged out like a criminal. She closed her eyes, wishing the floor would open up and swallow her whole. Clang! A sound echoed through the silent ballroom. It was the sound of a chair being kicked back. Hard. "That won't be necessary." The voice was a low baritone, calm but carrying a weight that made the air in the room feel heavier. It didn't shout, but it commanded instant obedience. Josie opened her eyes. The man from the shadows, the one with the dark hair and the unbuttoned collar, was standing up. He walked out of the darkness and into the spotlight. He was tall, taller than Jonah, with broad shoulders that strained against his suit jacket. His face was angular, handsome in a rough, weathered way, with a scar running through his left eyebrow. He walked straight toward Josie. He didn't look at Jonah. He didn't look at Haley. He stopped in front of Josie, ignoring the wine and the broken glass. He crouched down, ruining his immaculate suit trousers in the puddle of Merlot. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly. His eyes were a startling, icy blue, but the gaze he turned on her was warm. Josie was too stunned to speak. She just shook her head, clutching the wine-soaked napkin. The man gently took the napkin from her hand and tossed it aside. Then he extended a hand, palm up, a large, steady hand. "Stand up," he said. "You don't bow to these people." "Excuse me?" Jonah stepped forward, bristling. "Who the hell are you? This is a private event. Step away from the crazy woman." The man stood up, pulling Josie with him. He positioned himself between her and Jonah, a human shield. He looked at Jonah with an expression of utter boredom. "She's not crazy," the man said. "And she didn't throw the bottle. I saw the whole thing. Your fiancé checked her elbow into the waitress's wrist. It was a cheap shot. Poor form." Haley gasped. "How dare you? Do you know who we are?" "I know exactly who you are," the man said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Jonah Wilder, CEO of Wilder Tech, a man who built a fortune on code he didn't write." The room gasped. Jonah turned a shade of purple. "You listen to me. And you," the man turned to Haley. "Haley Ford, a woman who thinks buying a dress makes her royalty. You just humiliated a woman who is working for a living simply because you're insecure." "Security!" Jonah screamed, his voice cracking. "Throw this clown out! Throw them both out!" The head of security, a massive man named Brutus who had been reaching for Josie, hesitated. He looked at the stranger, squinting. Then his eyes went wide. He lowered his radio. He stepped back. "I can't do that, Mr. Wilder," the guard muttered. "What do you mean you can't?" Jonah shrieked. "I rented this venue. I am the client." The stranger reached into his jacket pocket. Josie held her breath, half expecting him to pull out a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a phone. He tapped the screen once, then held it up. "Actually," the stranger said, his voice calm and terrifyingly final, "you rented the venue from the Sterling Group." "So what?" Jonah sneered. "I'm Emmett Easton," the man said. The name hit the room like a bomb. Josie's breath caught. Emmett Easton, the recluse billionaire. The man who owned half the city's real estate, a tech investor with pockets deeper than God, and a reputation for ruthlessness that made Jonah look like a playground bully. He was a myth. Nobody had seen him in public for 5 years. "And 5 minutes ago," Emmett continued, checking his watch, "I bought the Sterling Group, which means I own this hotel, I own this ballroom, and I own the ground you are standing on." He took a step toward Jonah, his blue eyes flashing with cold fire. "And I don't like how you treat my guests." The silence that followed Emmett Easton's declaration was heavier than the crystal chandeliers hanging overhead. For 3 seconds, the world inside the Diamond Ballroom stopped turning. Jonah Wilder blinked, his face flushing a deep, mottled crimson that clashed violently with his midnight blue tuxedo. You bought the hotel." He laughed, a nervous, stuttering sound. "That's impossible. Deals like that take months. You're bluffing. This is a prank, right? A sick joke?" Emmett didn't blink. He slid his phone back into his pocket with a casual grace that was more insulting than a slap. "I don't joke about real estate, Jonah. and I certainly don't joke about liability. Having a guest assault a member of my staff? That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. I'm minimizing my risk." He turned to the head of security, Brutus. "Escort Mr. Wilder and Ms. Ford off the premises immediately." "You can't do this," Haley screeched, clutching her wine-stained chest. "This is my engagement party. We have press here. We have photographers." "Oh, I know," Emmett said, his voice dropping to a dangerous, icy register. "And if you don't leave in the next 2 minutes, I'll have the police arrest you for assault and battery." "I'm sure the press would love that photo op. Heiress in handcuffs has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" Haley recoiled as if struck. She looked at the crowd, her friends, her admirers, the people she had preened for all night. They were all staring, cameras raised, recording every second of her downfall. The adoration in their eyes had curdled into hungry amusement. They weren't loyal to her. They were loyal to power, and the power in the room had just shifted violently. "Jonah, do something," Haley hissed, tugging on his sleeve. Jonah looked at Emmett, then at the security guards who were now stepping closer, forming a wall of black suits. The illusion of his control was shattering. He was a man who ruled algorithms, but Emmett Easton ruled the physical world. "This isn't over, Easton," Jonah spat, trying to muster some shred of dignity. "You've made a powerful enemy tonight. Wilder Tech is the future. You're just a dinosaur playing with brick and mortar." "The future needs a foundation, Jonah," Emmett replied calmly, "and yours is built on sand. Now get out." "Let's go," Jonah snarled, grabbing Haley's arm roughly. He didn't offer to help her with her heavy dress. He just marched toward the exit, his head down. Liam Walker, the smug best friend, looked between his retreating boss and the new owner. He set his drink down on a passing tray and scurried after Jonah like a rat fleeing a sinking ship. As the doors swung shut behind them, a strange sound filled the room. It was applause. It started with Jade Knight, clapping slowly and defiantly, and soon the entire room joined in. The same people who had laughed at Josie 10 minutes ago were now cheering for her savior. Josie felt sick. The hypocrisy was suffocating. She looked down at her stained apron, the broken glass, her bleeding palms. She didn't feel like a victor. She felt like a prop in a play she didn't write. "Show's over," Emmett announced to the room, his voice booming without a microphone. "The bar is closed. The kitchen is closed. Everyone out." "But," a socialite in the front row protested, "we just got here." "I said out," Emmett commanded. "This party is cancelled. Refunds will be issued by your former host." The crowd grumbled, but they moved. No one argued with a billionaire who looked ready to tear the building down with his bare hands. Within 15 minutes, the ballroom was empty. The silence returned, but this time it was peaceful. The staff stood around the edges, terrified, unsure if they were fired too. Josie knelt again to pick up the glass shards. It was a reflex. It was her job. "Stop that," Emmett said. He was standing right above her again. "I have to clean it," Josie mumbled, her voice trembling. "The manager said—" "I'm the manager now," Emmett said. He reached down, took her hand gently, and pulled her to her feet. He didn't let go. He turned her hand over, inspecting the small cuts on her palm where the glass had bitten in. "You're hurt. You need medical attention." "It's just a scratch." Josie pulled her hand away, shame flushing her cheeks. "Why did you do that? You didn't have to buy a hotel just to stop a bully. That's excessive." Emmett looked at her, and for the first time a small, genuine smile touched his lips. It transformed his face, making him look younger, less like a titan of industry, and more like a man who had finally found something he was looking for. "I didn't buy it just for that," he admitted. "I've been eyeing the sterling for months. Tonight just gave me the excuse to expedite the paperwork." He paused, his gaze sharpening. "But watching you take that abuse, watching the woman who wrote the architect algorithm being treated like a servant, That was the catalyst. Josie froze. Her heart hammered against her ribs. How? How do you know about that? I know everything about Wilder Tech, Josie, Emmett said. I know Jonah is a frontman. I know Liam is a glorified accountant. And I know that the miracle code that launched their IPO 3 years ago has your signature written all over its syntax. He gestured to the empty ballroom. Go get changed, Josie. Meet me in the penthouse in 20 minutes. Bring your brain. Leave the apron. The penthouse suite of the Grand Sterling was larger than the entire apartment Josie was currently waiting to be evicted from. It had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the rain-slicked city, a fireplace that roared with real logs, and an oak desk that looked like it had been carved from the hull of a galleon. Josie sat on the edge of a leather sofa, wearing her own clothes, jeans and a worn sweater, having scrubbed the wine from her skin in the staff locker room. Her hands were bandaged. She felt small in the vast room, but she refused to slouch. Emmett walked in from the adjoining room. He had ditched his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms that were corded with muscle. He carried 2 glasses of amber liquid. "Whiskey," he said, handing her one. "Neat. You look like you need it." "I need answers," Josie said, taking the glass but not drinking. "Who are you really, Emmett? And why do you care about my code?" Emmett sat on the edge of the heavy desk, facing her. He took a sip, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'm an investor, Josie. But unlike the sharks in this city, I don't invest in hype. I invest in structure. I invest in things that last." He tapped the side of his glass. 6 months ago, my analysts flagged Wilder Tech as a potential acquisition. On paper, they're golden, record profits, high stock price, but I started digging into their back end. I hired forensic coders to look at their latest updates. Josie leaned forward, her tech instincts overriding her fear. And it's a mess, Emmett said bluntly. Since the divorce, since you left, the code quality has degraded by 40%. They're patching your original architecture with sloppy fixes. It's like putting duct tape on a jet engine. It's holding for now, but eventually the pressure will blow it apart. Josie let out a bitter laugh. I told him. Before I left, I told Jonah that the scaling algorithm needed a complete refactor for the new server loads. He said I was being obsessive. He said Liam could handle it. Liam couldn't handle a calculator, Emmett scoffed. Here's the reality, Josie. Jonah is preparing to launch Wilder 2.0 next month. It's a massive integration with the banking sector. If he launches with the current instability, he won't just crash an app. He'll compromise financial data for millions of users. It will be a catastrophe. Josie felt a cold chill. He doesn't know. He's too arrogant to check the load balances. Exactly, Emmett nodded. I tried to warn the board, but they won't listen. They see Jonah as a god. They think I'm just a jealous rival trying to tank their stock price so I can buy it cheap. Emmett stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. I hate waste, Josie. I hate seeing potential squandered, and I hate liars. He turned back to her. I want to stop him, not just to save the banks, but to expose him. I want to show the world who the real genius behind Wilder Tech was. It's too late, Josie whispered, looking at her bandaged hands. He won. He has the patents. He has the lawyers. I signed an NDA that practically forbids me from touching a keyboard. Contracts are words, Emmett said, walking over to her. He knelt down, bringing himself to her eye level. The intensity in his blue eyes was magnetic. Power is the ability to rewrite the words. I have the best legal team in the hemisphere. I can crush that NDA before breakfast. He placed a folder on the coffee table between them. This is an employment contract, Emmett said. Head of architecture for Eastern Systems. Double your old salary, full benefits, and a signing bonus that will clear your debts and buy you a house. Josie stared at the folder. It looked like a lifeline. It looked like a trap. Why? She asked, her voice trembling. Why go to these lengths for me? You could hire 10 Ivy League grads for that price. Because they didn't write the architect algorithm, Emmett said softly, and because I saw you tonight. You were humiliated, beaten down, and surrounded by wolves. But you didn't break. You stood up. You have grit, Josie. I can buy talent. I can't buy integrity. He leaned back. I'm not offering you charity. I'm offering you a weapon. Come work for me. Help me build a system that outperforms Wilder's. Help me show the world that without you, Jonah Wilder is nothing but a suit. Josie looked at the folder. She thought of Haley's laughter. She thought of Jonah pushing her to her knees. She thought of the code, her art, her life's work, being butchered by incompetence. She picked up the whiskey and downed it in one burn. Then she reached for the folder. I don't just want to build a better system, Josie said, her voice finding its steel. If we're going to do this, Emmett, we do it my way. We don't just outperform him, we bury him. Emmett grinned, a shark-like predatory grin that promised chaos. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful partnership. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but it happened fast. 3 days after the Red Wedding at the Sterling, as the tabloids were calling it, Josie walked into the Eastern Tower. She wasn't wearing a grey apron. She was wearing a tailored navy pantsuit that Emmett's personal shopper had sent over, sharp enough to cut glass. Her hair was down, cascading in the waves she loved, no longer hidden. But the real change wasn't the clothes. It was the armor she had built around her heart. She stepped into the elevator, her security badge, Josephine Dawson, chief architect, already clipped to her lapel. When she reached the 40th floor, the war room, she expected a corporate office. What she found was a command center. Banks of monitors lined the walls displaying real-time data streams. A small elite team of developers, maybe 6 of them, looked up as she entered. Emmett was there standing by a main console. Team, meet your new boss. If she tells you the sky is green, you start painting. The team didn't sneer. They didn't question. They knew who she was. In the underground coding forums, JD Architect was a legend. They looked at her with awe. All right, Josie said, dropping her bag. She felt a surge of adrenaline she hadn't felt in 3 years. Let's see the patient. Pull up the Wilder API integration. For the next 2 weeks, Josie lived in that room. She worked with a fervor that bordered on mania. She wasn't just coding, she was exorcising demons. Every line of code she wrote was a reclamation of her identity, but it wasn't easy. The trauma of the last few years lingered. One late night, around 2 a.m., the office was empty except for the hum of servers. Josie was staring at a line of code, her hands shaking. A panic attack was clawing at her throat. What if Jonah is right? What if I'm a fraud? What if I fail Emmett just like I failed my marriage? You're doing it again. Josie jumped. Emmett was standing in the doorway. He was holding 2 takeout boxes of noodles. He seemed to live in the office as much as she did. Doing what? Josie asked, wiping her sweaty palms on her trousers. Doubting, Emmett said. He walked over, pulling a chair up next to hers. He opened the noodles and handed her a pair of chopsticks. I can see the wheels turning. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're waiting for me to turn into him. Josie put the chopsticks down. Can you blame me? Powerful men tend to have a pattern, Emmett. You save the girl, you give her the world, and then you expect gratitude or ownership. Emmett stopped eating. He turned his chair to face her fully. The playfulness was gone from his face, replaced by a solemn gravity. I'm not Jonah, he said firmly. I don't want to own you, Josie. I don't need a trophy. I have enough trophies. He gestured to the skyline outside. I want an equal. I've spent my life surrounded by people who say yes to me because of my bank account. You? You challenged my logic on the server architecture 3 times yesterday. You told me I was wrong in front of my own staff. Josie flinched. I'm sorry, I just... Don't apologize, Emmett interrupted. That's what I want. That's what I need. I need someone who cares about the truth more than my ego. Jonah couldn't handle your brilliance because it made him feel small. I want you to be big, Josie, as big as you can be, because I'm not afraid of your shadow." Josie looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the exhaustion in his eyes, but also the unwavering respect. He wasn't looking at her like a possession. He was looking at her like a partner in crime. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me," Emmett said, turning back to his noodles. "Just fix the bug in Sector 7. It's driving me crazy." Josie smiled, a genuine, warm smile. She picked up her chopsticks. "Sector 7 is fine. It's your interface that's lagging. I'll fix it." They ate in comfortable silence, the bond between them cementing not through romance, but through shared purpose. The next morning, the breakthrough happened. Josie was running a simulation of the Wilder 2.0 launch using a mirror of the old architecture she had designed. She found it. "Emmett!" she yelled across the room. He was at her side in seconds. "Look!" She pointed at the screen, where red lines of data were cascading like a waterfall. Jonah didn't just patch the code. He removed the fail-safe protocol I installed to speed up the processing time. He stripped the safety brakes to make the car go faster. "He's bypassing the encryption verification?" Emmett asked, his eyes widening. "Yes," Josie said, her voice grim. "It makes the app lightning fast, but it leaves a backdoor open every time a transaction is processed. A backdoor big enough to drive a truck through." "If he launches this," Emmett murmured, "hackers will have access to every bank account connected to the app within an hour," Josie finished. "It's not just a bug, it's a ticking time bomb." Emmett stood up, pacing the room. "We have them. We can go to the press now. We can stop the launch." "No," Josie said slowly. A cold, calculated realization washed over her. "If we warn him now, he'll deny it. He'll call it a fabrication. He'll delay the launch, patch it quietly, and spin the narrative that we tried to sabotage him. He'll win the PR war. So what do we do?" Josie turned to the screen, her face illuminated by the glow of the data. She thought of the wine on the floor. She thought of, "Get on your knees." "We let him launch," Josie said softly. Emmett stopped pacing. "Josie, that will crash the market." "No," Josie corrected. "We let him start the launch event. We let him get on stage. We let him demo the live transaction. And then we trigger the stress test." "You want to hack the live demo?" Emmett asked, raising an eyebrow. "I don't need to hack it," Josie said, tapping her temple. "I built the system. I know the secret knock. We run a white hat intrusion during his keynote. We demonstrate the vulnerability live, on screen, in front of his investors. We don't just tell them it's broken. We show them. It was risky. It was aggressive. It was arguably grey hat warfare." Emmett looked at her for a long moment. Then a slow, dark grin spread across his face. "Remind me never to cross you, Josephine," he said. "Let's do it." The launch of Wilder 2.0 was designed to be the event of the decade. Jonah had rented out the convention center's main atrium, transforming it into a futuristic temple of blue light and glass. Giant screens suspended from the ceiling played looping videos of happy families, sleek cars, and soaring skylines, all supposedly powered by the new Wilder app. Backstage, Jonah Wilder paced like a caged tiger. He checked his reflection in the mirror for the 10th time. His suit was Italian silk, his hair was perfectly coiffed, but his eyes were bloodshot. The stress of the last month, the rumors of bugs, the pressure from the board, and the lingering humiliation from the engagement party had taken a toll. "Sit down, Jonah, you're making me dizzy," Haley said. She was lounging on a white leather sofa, scrolling through her phone. She wore a dress that cost more than a mid-sized sedan, but her expression was bored. "It's going to be fine. You talk, they clap, the stock goes up. It's the same routine as always." "It's not the same," Jonah snapped. "The pre-orders are lower than projected, and there's chatter, rumors on the blogs about stability issues." "So? Ignore them." Haley waved a manicured hand. "You're Jonah Wilder. You can sell ice to an Eskimo. Just turn on the charm." Liam Walker burst into the room looking sweaty and pale. "We have a problem." Jonah spun around. "What now?" "We just got a notification from the guest list," Liam stammered. "A last-minute addition. VIP Box 1. "Who?" "Emmett Easton." Liam swallowed hard. And Josie." Jonah's face went white. "They're here? In the building?" "They bought a platinum sponsorship package an hour ago," Liam said. "Technically, we can't kick them out without causing a scene. The press is already seated." Haley laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. "Let them watch. Let the little waitress see what real success looks like. She probably begged Easton to bring her just so she could feel important." Jonah wasn't so sure. He felt a prickle of unease at the base of his neck. "Make sure security watches them. If they so much as sneeze too loud, I want them escorted out." "You got it," Liam nodded, though his hands were shaking. Out in the VIP box, high above the gathered crowd of investors and tech journalists, Josie Dawson stood looking down at the stage. She wore a deep crimson dress that was elegant, powerful, and unapologetic. It was the color of the wine that had stained the floor at the Sterling, but now she wore it as armor. "Nervous?" Emmett asked, standing beside her. He looked calm, predatory, like a lion waiting for a gazelle to stumble. "No," Josie said, her voice steady. She placed a sleek black laptop on the ledge of the box. "I'm not nervous. I'm ready." "Remember," Emmett said, his voice low, "we wait for the live transaction, the moment he connects to the banking server." "I know the cue," Josie said. She opened the laptop. The screen glowed with lines of code, the diagnostic tool she had built in secret over the last 2 weeks. It wasn't a virus. It was a mirror. It was designed to reflect the system's internal logic onto the main presentation screen. Below them, the lights dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd. A booming bass note shook the floor, and the giant screens flared to life with the Wilder Tech logo. "Ladies and gentlemen," a disembodied voice announced, "please welcome the visionary, the architect of the future, Jonah Wilder." Jonah strode onto the stage to thunderous applause. He smiled, waved, and soaked in the adulation. For a moment he forgot his fear. He was the king again. "Thank you," Jonah shouted into his headset microphone. "Tonight we don't just launch an app. We launch a revolution. For too long, financial freedom has been complicated, slow, insecure. But with Wilder 2.0, we are tearing down the walls." He paced the stage, his charisma dialed up to 11. He spoke of speed, of integration, of a world where money moved as fast as thought. The crowd ate it up. They cheered at the buzzwords. Up in the box, Josie watched with cold detachment. "He's using my speech," she whispered. "I wrote that opening for the 1.0 launch. He just changed the adjectives." "He's a cover band playing a stolen song," Emmett murmured. "Let's unplug his amp." "And now," Jonah announced, walking toward a podium where a sleek tablet waited. "The moment you've been waiting for, a live, real-time transaction. I am going to transfer $1 million of my own money to a charity account across the globe using only my voice and the Wilder 2.0 secure encryption." The crowd gasped. This was high stakes. Live demos were notorious for failing, but a financial transfer, that was bold. "Are we ready?" Jonah shouted. "Yes!" the crowd roared. Jonah tapped the tablet. The giant screen behind him mirrored the device. It showed a sleek interface, a balance of $1,000 and a send button. "Initiating transfer," Jonah said. He pressed the button. A loading bar appeared on the giant screen. "Processing." In the VIP box, Josie's fingers flew across her keyboard. "Now," she whispered. She hit enter. On the giant screen, the loading bar froze at 99%. Jonah smiled confidently. "Just a second, folks." The internet in here is a little crowded." He chuckled. The crowd chuckled with him, but the bar didn't move. Then the screen flickered. The sleek blue interface of Wilder 2.0 vanished. In its place, a stark black terminal window appeared. Lines of red text began to scroll rapidly down the massive screen, 50 feet high. The crowd murmured in confusion. "Is this part of the show?" someone whispered. Jonah turned around. His smile faltered. "What? What is this? Tech support. Cut the feed." But the feed didn't cut. The text stopped scrolling and a large red warning box appeared in the center of the screen. "Critical security failure detected. Encryption protocol bypassed. Failsafe status removed." A gasp rippled through the audience. "This is a hack!" Jonah screamed, his voice cracking. "We are being attacked! Cut the power!" Then a voice cut through the chaos. It wasn't coming from the stage, it was coming from the speakers, overriding Jonah's microphone. "It's not a hack, Jonah, it's a diagnostic." Heads turned. High up in the VIP box, Josie Dawson was holding a microphone, standing in the spotlight. Her face was projected onto the side screens. "Josie," Jonah whispered, staring up at her in horror. "You removed the safety protocols, Jonah." Josie's voice rang out, clear and calm. "To increase the processing speed, you stripped the SSL verification. If that transaction had gone through, you would have exposed the banking credentials of everyone on this network to the open web." "She's lying," Jonah shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at her. "She's a disgruntled ex-employee. She's jealous. Security, get her." "Look at the screen," Josie commanded. She typed a command on her laptop. The text on the big screen changed. It displayed a specific block of code, complex, dense, and undeniable to any engineer in the room. And right there, in the comments of the code, was a timestamp and a user ID. L. Walker. Admin. Disabled. Security. Patch. V4. "That is the source code," Josie explained. "It shows exactly when the security was disabled. 3 weeks ago, by your COO. The room erupted. Journalists were on their feet, snapping photos. Investors were shouting. The stock ticker on the side of the room, which had been displaying Wilder Tech's price, suddenly ticked downward. Then it plummeted. Liam Walker, standing in the wings, tried to run. He was tackled by a frantic board member who realized his investment was evaporating. "You built a house of cards, Jonah," Josie said, her voice filled with a sad finality. "And you tried to live in it during a storm." Jonah stood center stage, small and alone. The giant screen behind him, usually his tool of manipulation, was now a billboard of his incompetence. He looked at Haley for support. Haley was already gone. She had slipped out the back exit the moment the stock price started to drop. Jonah stammered into the silence. "I didn't know. I'm the CEO. I don't write the code." "That," Emmett Easton's voice boomed as he stepped up to the microphone beside Josie, "is exactly the problem. You don't know what you're selling, and you don't respect the people who build it." Emmett looked down at the ruined launch. "Easton Systems is formally shorting Wilder Tech," Emmett announced, "and we are offering immediate employment to any engineer on the Wilder team who wants to work for a company that values integrity over speed." The applause didn't start slowly this time. It crashed like a wave. It wasn't polite applause. It was the sound of a regime changing. Jonah Wilder sank to his knees, not unlike the way he had forced Josie to kneel weeks ago. But this time there was no one to clean up his mess. The weeks following the launch were a blur of legal motions and headlines. The SEC investigation into Wilder Tech was swift and brutal. The evidence Josie had provided, the logs, the time-stamped changes, was irrefutable. Jonah wasn't just incompetent. By selling a product he knew, or should have known, was defective to banks, he had committed fraud. Jonah and Liam were indicted. The photo of Jonah being led out of his penthouse in handcuffs became the most shared image on the internet. "The Emperor has no code," the headline read. Haley Ford gave an exclusive interview to Vanity Fair titled, "I Was a Victim Too," claiming she had no idea about the business practices. She was seen dating a European prince 3 weeks later. She had survived like a cockroach in a nuclear winter, but her reputation in the city was tarnished. She was no longer the queen of society. She was the punchline. For Josie, the victory was quiet. She didn't do interviews. She didn't go on talk shows to gloat. She simply went to work. Eastern Systems acquired the server farms of Wilder Tech for pennies on the dollar during the bankruptcy liquidation. Josie spent her days overseeing the integration, hiring back many of the junior developers who had been bullied by Liam. She turned the toxic culture into one of collaboration. One rainy Tuesday, Josie was in her office, a real office now, with her name on the door in frosted glass, when her assistant buzzed her. "Miss Dawson, there's a visitor for you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says he knows you." "Who is it?" Josie asked, not looking up from her monitors. "Jonah Wilder." Josie froze. She took a breath, centered herself, and pressed the button. "Send him in." Jonah looked terrible. He was out on bail, awaiting trial. He had lost weight, his hair was thinning, and the expensive suits were gone, replaced by a rumpled button-down. He stood in the doorway, looking at the office, at the awards on the shelf, at the woman sitting behind the desk. "What do you want, Jonah?" Josie asked. She didn't offer him a seat. Jonah rubbed his face. "I wanted to ask, why? You could have just quit. You could have walked away. Why burn it all down?" "I didn't burn it down, Jonah," Josie said calmly. "Gravity did. I just pointed out that the supports were missing." "I could have given you money," Jonah muttered, "if you had just asked." "I never wanted your money," Josie stood up. "I wanted credit. I wanted respect. And when you took those from me, when you tried to erase me, you made me remember who I was." She walked around the desk and stood in front of him. She wasn't afraid of him anymore. He seemed so small now. "I built that algorithm, Jonah. It was my mind. You thought you could buy the shell and the ghost would come with it. But the ghost left." Jonah looked at her, a flicker of regret finally crossing his eyes. Maybe he realized for the first time that he had traded a diamond for a rhinestone when he left her for Haley. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I know," Josie said, "but it doesn't matter anymore. Goodbye, Jonah." She turned her back on him. He stood there for a moment, a ghost of the past, and then silently left. As the door clicked shut, the connecting door to Emmett's office opened. Emmett leaned against the frame, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "He looked pathetic," Emmett observed. "He looked human," Josie corrected. She took a mug from him. "Just a man who got lost in his own reflection." "You okay?" Emmett asked, searching her face. Josie took a sip of the coffee. It was perfect. Hazelnut, just the way she liked it. "I'm better than okay. I'm free." 6 months later, the charity gala at the Sterling Hotel, now officially the Eastern Sterling, was in full swing. But this time the atmosphere was different. It wasn't stuffy or cruel. It was vibrant. Josie stood on the balcony overlooking the city. She wasn't wearing a grey apron. She wasn't cleaning up spills. She was the host. Emmett joined her, wrapping an arm around her waist. The touch was familiar, grounded. They hadn't rushed into a relationship. They had built it, brick by brick, like code. They were partners in business first, and that respect had blossomed into a love that felt unbreakable. "You know," Emmett said, looking at the skyline, "they're calling you the Queen of Silicon Valley in the papers today." Josie laughed, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I prefer head architect. It sounds more structural." "It suits you," Emmett kissed her temple. "You saved the company, Josie. You saved the industry. But mostly, you saved yourself." Josie looked out at the lights. She thought about the woman on her knees in the ballroom, crying over spilled wine. She wished she could go back and tell that woman to stand up. But then she realized she didn't have to. That woman had stood up, and she had walked all the way here. We have a lot of work to do tomorrow, Josie said, smiling. The new interface needs testing. Tomorrow, Emmett agreed, but tonight, we celebrate the truth. They clinked their glasses, the sound ringing out clear and true, echoing into the night. Karma had struck, justice had been served, and the architect had finally designed her own happy ending. Enjoyed the story? It's a wild ride from hitting rock bottom to owning the skyline, isn't it? If you felt that satisfaction when the blue screen of truth appeared, hit that like button. It helps us create more stories where the underdog bites back. Do you think Jonah deserved a second chance, or did he get exactly what was coming to him? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want more tales of revenge, redemption, and romance, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a chapter. Remember, the truth always compiles eventually. Thanks for watching.